Is up, has the accuracy, and it is good. Jake Bates throwing right side, and it's going to be intercepted. Return past the 15, past the 20, out past the 30. Has space down the sideline. 40, 35, 30. And he is gone. A pick six for Houston. Snap good, hold good, kick up. And it is straight down the middle. Looking to throw, rolls out right. Throws end zone. Touchdown San Antonio. Cody Latimer alone in the end zone. They take a 1-point lead with 3 seconds left. 52-yarder, left hash, for the win. Snap good, hold good, kick up, and it's drilled. Miami escapes week 1 with the win. Jason Sanders is looking to throw. Pass right side, wide open. Touchdown Drake London. Touchdown Drake London. Atlanta has tied this game and are an extra point away from taking the lead. Needing the 12-yard line. Handoff, Robinson left side. And going to be stuffed. A loss of 4, maybe 5 on the play. And with 50 seconds to go, the Chiefs have the ball. And most likely that does it. Ball on the 17.5-yard line. Looking to throw. Stepping up, throwing for the end zone. And caught. Touchdown Green Bay. Dontavian Wicks. 56 seconds to play. The Packers are within 3. 6:17 to play in overtime. Tua shotgun. Back to his left. 3 receivers to the right. Bunched up. Tua to throw. Pass time. Plenty of time. Pass. End zone. Left side. Jonnu Smith. Touchdown Miami. They're gonna win. Let's go, baby. Here, back behind him. 3 receiving options to the left. Gonna send Smith in motion. Toss left side for Saquon Barkley. Good blocking and room to run. Pass midfield. Spinning his way. Pass to 35 to 30. 25, 20, 15, 10, 5, and the Eagles respond instantly. Saquon Barkley. Oh my, making his presence felt. 1 play, 60 yards, 3rd and 9 from the 35. Mahomes looking to throw. Quick pass left side, caught by Piron. Has room to run. First down and more. Down to about the 17. And he stays in bounds. That will do it. The Kansas City Chiefs have escaped the Bills and have punched their ticket. Hello, everybody, and welcome on in. This is going to be a relatively short stream, considering the usual 3+ hour stuff for the games and whatnot. I'm going to keep this to roughly 45-ish minutes. Mainly just wanted to discuss and talk about the big UFL news we got today, as part of this channel is also the UFL season come the spring. So I figured might as well, we got pretty much all the information we could need today. So let's just go live and let's discuss. We're going to go over the complete timeline of the events over the past 4 or 5 months with this league and kind of where we sit on it. But yeah, a little bit longer, get some more people to come in before we truly dive into all of it. Panther game just wrapped up. That was a nice win on opening night for the Cats. And I'm excited for the NHL season to roll around. I think the NHL season is going to roll nicely into all of this as well. But yeah. Yeah, some big UFL stuff dropped. So I'm excited. I've been a fan of the Spring League since 2019 with the AAF. I'm wearing a New York Guardians jersey. I got this during XFL 2.0 because during XFL 2.0, Orlando and Florida did not have a team, so I went with New York. The Guardians, sadly, not back just yet. So still, technically, I don't have a team, though obviously I will be a little bit lenient towards Orlando. But we'll get to that. We'll get to. I'm getting ahead of myself here. But yeah, welcome on in, and let's just start this. I'm also gonna be recording this for a video later as well, probably go up on Friday. But yeah, so it is October 7th, 2025, and UFL has gotten quite a big shakeup.
all of a sudden. It was expected. We did get the press conference from Orlando that was expected, kind of go into more details on what was announced at around 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock a.m. Eastern time, maybe more so around like 10 o'clock. But nonetheless, the UFL has basically 3 new teams, with 2 teams having rebranded, and a bunch of new stadiums. So let's start from the beginning. About 4 or 5 months ago, it was reported / leaked and rumored that 4 teams will be on the move for the 2026 season. Those were Birmingham, Michigan, Memphis, and Houston. So with that, obviously there was quite a few backlash and quite a lot of dialogue amongst UFL fans about it, because Michigan was the only team to see an increase in attendance last season compared to 2024. Birmingham was a 3-time spring football champion and made the USFL Conference Championship last year, so them being on the move kind of made no sense. Meanwhile, the other 2 teams were understandable. And then about 2 weeks to a month after that report was out there, the UFL got a new, somewhat primary owner. He's been the primary owner, at least like towards the media, all of this, and that is good old Mike Reepel, who's very big into the horse racing side of it, horse racing industry and all that. But he decided to become part owner of the UFL. And from the jump, he made a massive push to wanting the league to be more open in a way towards like what the inner workings are going on there. And also made it very clear that yes, there is going to be some changes in terms of the teams and the locations that the league is trying to capitalize on. And also what it means for a UFL team to be there. One of his biggest things was stadium size. And we saw that with this announcement today, the fact that there's quite a few new stadiums and they're all within that under 30,000 mark of attendance possibility, which is great for a league like this. They're not ready for massive NFL, even college side stadiums at this point. The one team is. For the majority of the league, they're not quite ready for that, so having a smaller venue makes sense. There was also the whole hashtag save the Stallions or keep the Stallions moment that went on. He made an announcement saying that they can get to a certain amount of season ticket signups, the Stallions will stay. About 2, maybe 3 weeks, about more so 2 weeks after that, he went on a local Birmingham radio station and said the Stallions will stay. So that guarantees basically 4 teams. In most people's mind, they'll guarantee like 5 teams, or more so 6 teams for the next year. That was Birmingham Stallions, St. Louis Battlehawks, DC Defenders, Arlington Renegades, and what most people thought was going to be safe for the San Antonio Brahmas and the Michigan Panthers. Because again, Michigan Panthers, the only team to have properly increased attendance from 2024 to 2025. That was a big thing about this past season, was attendance wasn't great everywhere outside of Michigan. San Antonio, a lot of people thought were going to stay because of how tied in that team felt like to Dwayne Johnson and The Rock, who is also a part owner of the UFL. Well, we get an announcement about 2 weeks. Everything's about 2-week increments, it seems. About 2 weeks ago, we get an announcement that by October 8th, we were going to hear about the new teams and what the future of the UFL looks like. That announcement came today. Beginning most of this memo that the UFL released and everything surrounding it, it feels like it is a complete relaunch of the league, despite it being a thing the past 2 years. And it's more so UFL 2.0, but just going to call it UFL to keep things simple. They got a new logo. It looks pretty fine. Still keeping that, just monochromatic black and white color scheme for the main league logo. Not a big fan of that, but it's a what can you do aspect of it. But the massive announcements was the locations and the team names of the 3 new teams. So, and also which teams were going to be departing. We actually got that first. So, the one everyone expected, the Memphis Showboats are not going to be a team in 2026. That was to everyone's expectations. They just were not a good team on the field. Attendance was abysmal. Getting lucky, they were lucky to get 5,000 people in the stands any given week. And just all around, the location of Simmons Liberty Bank Stadium was not good in Memphis. So they're on the move. That was to be expected. We don't know exactly which of the new teams they are just yet, but we know that they were on them. That we know that they have been relocated. The other 2 teams were a bit of a surprise. One of them being the San Antonio Brahmas. I understand moving them because the Alamodome and really just everything surrounding the Brahmas was not going great. They only had 4 home games last year. Scheduling conflicts with the Alamodome was hell and was not good on the league. And with that, attendance wasn't that great. Play on the field was terrible last year compared to the UFL champion runner-ups in 2024. And just all around, they were the biggest mess of a team last year. Wade Phillips, who was the head coach, he ends up having to be in the booth in the press box for 2 games, and he leaves after 3 weeks. Their young budding OC ended up not being with the team last year because he decided to step down due to just the league not being ran. It was all a mess last year with San Antonio. So they're on the move. Again, we don't know exactly to which new location yet, but they are on the move. The most surprising one was the Michigan Panthers. And because of Michigan being relocated, it means that the wordage that they had when they announced these teams was massively important. But let's just start with the Panthers in first. Again, they were the only team to have the increase in attendance from year in, year out. So that was a great point. And Michigan has such a massive fan base that it sucks that they're not going to be a part of the league for the foreseeable future. The biggest reason is stadium, because the UFL made this massive push of wanting smaller size stadiums. That way the TV broadcast can look better, can look like the stadium's more full, and thus, more people will be interested to stay to watch a full game on TV, whether that's ESPN or Fox. So the stadium that Michigan was playing in, Ford Field, while yeah, it was a good stadium and it is a great stadium for the Detroit Lions, it did not fit the UFL. They gave them a terrible leasing deal, about $200,000 per game, and the UFL was just not going to be able to do that. Plus, the UFL had no priority in terms of actually being able to have games there, which means that the Panthers, who won the USFL conference last year, did not have a home playoff game, which is not a thing you want to have happen. And yeah, a similar thing happened in DC, but the idea is going forward that could be fixed with DC because, maybe the leasing deal is a little bit better there. But the other idea was, how about they play at Eastern Michigan? That's a pretty decently sized stadium, roughly around where the UFL wanted it to be. So why not go there? The athletic director of Eastern Michigan even said that they would be willing to host the Panthers until a new stadium opens up. That was the UFL never even seemed that as an option. One of the reasons could be that it's too far away from Detroit and the main section of Michigan they wanted it to market towards. So does it anything to get a lot of fans going to games out there. The other potential reason, which this seems to have been debunked, but still an option because we don't have the definitive wording just yet, is the fact that Eastern Michigan has a great turf and it doesn't look the greatest on TV. And one of the biggest components and biggest pushes that Mike Repole has had is the TV matters in this league. That's where most of the fans are going to be. You want the TV product to look good, so that way people can stay and watch the games and get into the league that way. So they said Eastern Michigan was not an option, and thus the Michigan Panthers are on the move. But the wording of when they made the announcement was big. They said that expansion is potential in 2028, and essentially massively hinted that some of these teams could be coming back, the biggest one being the Michigan Panthers. I do have a strong feeling that when expansion happens, Michigan is first on the docket to get in the team and bringing back the Panthers. Because they were one of the biggest fan bases in the league. They had the massive, great attendance last year. It's just they couldn't find a way to make things work. And I believe it's by 2027, Michigan is opening up a new MLS stadium for their MLS team, so which the Panthers could also fit into there and lease out that stadium as well for 5 maybe 6 games a year. That could be the option there, and they're just biding their time and didn't have a stadium they wanted to have the Panthers in until then. What comes with that, though, is now a lot of distrust between the Michigan fan base and the UFL in the league, and that could be detrimental, similar to what we saw in San Antonio, as they were decimated multiple times by that lack of trust between spring football and the fan base, with the AAF and that San Antonio team being departed, and multiple other instances of San Antonio football and spring football being left. But with all that, who are the new teams? Well, the most obvious one, the one we have known for a few months at this point, Columbus is getting a team. They're going to be called the Aviators, a name that I do like, and the logo is really good. And they're going to be playing in an MLS stadium, as they're going to be playing in. Here we go. They're going to be playing in the historic Crew Stadium in Columbus. It's going to be all three of the teams that were announced are trying to target markets that might have one professional team or no professional teams in the case of one of the teams, one of the cities, and they're trying to take control of that market for professional sports and tap into an untapped market. Columbus is the best example of this. I like their logo, I like their branding so far. We don't know the uniforms yet. In fact, I'm gonna get into it a little bit later, but we don't know the uniforms for any of the 8 teams yet. But the first thing is Columbus has a team. About time they joined the Columbus Blue Jackets as the only professional teams in Columbus itself, and it's relatively close by to Canton in case they wanted to use Canton for like a neutral site game to some capacity. But it is still a very nice team and a very nice logo, and I think they could be a pretty nice brand for the league to have. The other one is Orlando has a team again. And this was the past few days, this has been heavily implied that Orlando was going to be getting the team. And people were kind of concerned that it would be the Orlando Guardians because the Orlando Guardians was not a good brand. The logo wasn't great. The uniforms weren't great. As a whole, the brand was not good. But it's not. Sadly, it's not the Orlando Apollos of the AAF. I feel like that would have been the perfect choice. Instead, they kind of mix it up with the arena leagues that are in Orlando and Tampa. Orlando has the Orlando Predators, so they take the Orlando name, and Tampa has the Tampa Bay Storm. They take the Storm name. The Orlando Storm is the UFL team here in Florida, and they're gonna be playing at Inter & Co Stadium, which is the home of Orlando FC. Pretty much all of the stadiums are gonna be MLS stadiums to some capacity. But this is also a case where Orlando has a market here for professional sports and for sports in general. UCF does fantastic with their games. They sell out that stadium damn near every single night. The Orlando Solar Bears also has a good crowd for their games, and the Orlando Magic, of course, are up there as well. What's going on, T-Fox? Yeah, I'm quickly doing a timeline of the UFL here. So Orlando Storm. The third and final team that was announced is the Louisville Kings. And this is same way that everyone thought San Antonio was like the baby of Dwayne Johnson. The Louisville Kings seem to be the baby of Mike Riepel. But it also makes sense to have a very big horse identity for a Louisville team. So that's the case. Color scheme could be better, but I still think it's fine considering that it is a spring league we are talking about. And they're going to be playing at Lynn Family Stadium, which is also a MLS. I think it's actually like a ULS stadium. But it's, again, pretty nice stadium. All of these are going to be like between 20 to 30,000 capacity. Or Omaha did not get a team. Yeah, the 3 new teams are the Columbus Aviators, the Orlando Storm, and the Louisville Kings. Those are the 3 new teams. And 2 teams from last year got some rebranding. The most simplest is the Arlington Renegades are now the Dallas Renegades, and they'll be playing at Toyota Stadium in Frisco. So not technically in Dallas, but close enough. And the Renegades were called the Dallas Renegades during XFL 2.0. So they're bringing back that branding. I think that's fine. It's still going to be, the Renegades as we know. It seems like they're leaning even heavier into the Bandit logo, which I love a lot better than what their technical primary logo was over the past 2 years. So their branding is back. It's nice. And the more big rebrand, the Houston Roughnecks are no more, sadly, because I did really like their branding. Didn't really hit as well in the UFL because the team wasn't good, but the Houston Gamblers are back from the USFL and USFL 2.0. They're back, but it is quite a big rebrand to what we know of the Gamblers to be. And I still think it looks nice. And much like everyone else, they're moving to an MLS stadium as they're going to be playing in, I believe it's Shell Energy Stadium over in Houston. So those are the 5 new stadiums, the 5 technically new teams, 3 brand new teams, 2 rebranded teams. And the final nuggets for all of this is the idea of an USFL and XFL conference is no more. So it's just all 8 teams a part of one singular umbrella of UFL, which is definitely for the best when you have this little amount of teams, because what it means is now the top 4 teams across the entire league get into the playoffs. There's no top 2 from each conference. You're going to get the best 4 teams in the playoffs, which is going to be massive for when the playoffs roll around and you have the new influx of watchers there. So that's one of the key changes. The other minor thing is the fact that, there is no other information. We don't know where the coaching staff and the players of Michigan, Memphis, and San Antonio are going. And we don't know what the uniforms are going to look like for any of these teams. All 8 teams are getting brand new uniforms. So with that, it leaves some questions, because a team like Birmingham that had really good uniforms and really good branding, how are they going to look now going forward? How is St. Louis going to look like going forward? In fact, Birmingham and St. Louis were the only 2 teams and DC do not really change a whole lot entering 2026. St. Louis is still going to be playing at the Dome in America Center. They're still going to get probably the biggest attendance per week with about near 35,000 people. Birmingham has a lot of pressure on it. They're staying in Protective Stadium, which has a capacity of 30,000. It's the second highest capacity stadium in the league, and they're gonna have to damn near sell out that stadium if they're gonna want to maintain the Stallions for the foreseeable future. And that's another case where things get interesting. The Stallions had the chance to save themselves, and the fan base had a chance to save the Stallions. Michigan didn't. And all of this is going to come back to, when is Michigan going to be back? Will they ever be back? And what's that going to look like? Because I do have good trust that all of these 8 teams we currently have are going to be better teams than what we had in previous years with Memphis and Houston, or even San Antonio last year, where hopefully every single of the 40 games are going to be competitive. But at the end of the day, we just don't know yet. We do know all of the key things that we pretty much needed to know entering 2026, and that is the locations and the teams. So with all that took about 20 minutes to recap it all. So hell yeah. I might just upload that whole section as a video, or I might just re-record it a different day when I have a proper script and everything. But yeah, it's quite a big change in UFL. We expected some new teams. I don't think we expected it. We definitely did not expect pretty much a whole relaunch of the league. But it's for the best. They needed to change things around with it. For as much as I liked it the past 2 years, there was definitely things that could have been done better. Hopefully they will be. But time will tell. Week 1 and the start date is also March 25th, so we know that. I believe that's roughly around when it would usually start. I believe that's the last Friday of March. That seems to check out compared to the usual scheduling and the timing of it. But yeah, I mean, only time will tell when it comes down to just how different this season is going to be compared to previous years. I do love the fact that we're getting the smaller capacity stadiums. That was one of the things in my UFL expansion videos that I wanted to make sure I kept it to a pretty solid capacity, nothing too massive, because you're just not going to get that big of a fan base just yet for some of these teams. So the fact that they're keeping it with a pretty reasonable size stadiums is great. I'm hoping the branding does kick off well. I personally love the Orlando Storm color scheme. The logo is fine. I was really hoping for the Apollos to come back, but as long as it's not the Orlando Guardians, I was cool with it. So I think they did a good job there. Louisville, again, the color scheme, I'm just not the biggest of fans of, but it's a whatever situation. And then, again, I think Columbus has the best branding entering without the uniforms, knowing them, obviously. But I think Columbus has some of the best branding already, which is great. I think Columbus has potential to be an instant hit in terms of just attendance and fan base and energy at games. It's going to be fun. My other question in terms of the UFL is, now that there is no conferences, do you change the length of the season? Would you want each team to play all the other teams twice? If so, you need a 13, 14 game season. So that will be added on about about 3 weeks to the season, which could be quite a lot and could definitely throw a wrinkle into some of these stadium deals, and also be a reason why we did not see Michigan back. Is because they were already struggling to pay the current deal with Ford Field. If they wanted to add more games, they were going to put themselves in a really tough spot. I kind of doubt that we're going to see more games added, but if not, that means which means you're going to have to pick and choose the scheduling a bit, with only being able to play like 3 of the teams twice. So we'll see how that plays into all of this. But all around, I'm definitely a fan of the direction it seems the UFL is going in. The sports world as a whole, and more so the NFL world, but we need the spring leagues to be successful. We need them to be good, because it's the perfect breeding ground for untapped potential. You have like the Puka Nakuas, who 5th round picks that instantly hit the ground running, but there's so many not. But he's the exception of it all. You have the guys like a Jacob Sailors, who's playing well for Detroit right now. Jacor Corbin? No, it's Jay Sean Corbin, I believe, who was with the Brahmas, just signed with the Patriots. He's gonna get his chance now. You have the Jake Bates, the Brandon Aubrey, the Cavante Turpin. You have someone with the Chargers right now that I'm blanking on, I believe, who got his start in the UFL. You have so many of these guys who got their starts in spring leagues and ended up playing decently well in the NFL. PJ Walker is another. Yeah, his time in the NFL didn't really last the longest, but he's someone there. Taylor Heineke, he was with the Battlehawks in 2020. Bryce Perkins, who was with, I want to say, the Browns in the preseason. He had a really good year with the Panthers last year. There's a bunch of other guys. The more and more that the spring leagues can get those guys in and have those successful stories, the better things are gonna be. And it starts with the fans having to actually show up to games, watching the games on TV, and supporting these teams. And also, hopefully, the schedule is a bit better. I know one of the issues with Birmingham was the fact that they were getting a lot of 12 o'clock kickoffs on Sundays, which that's not a good time for those games to kick off. Maybe if they get more like Saturday night games or Saturday games, things could be seen better there. But all around, I think they nailed the locations pretty well. I had Louisville as an option in my part 2 of UFL expansion teams. I had Canton as the option there as well. More so Columbus. I was thinking about Canton/Columbus. I never really mentioned the potential for Orlando because I didn't want to touch on already the past locations. But it was also pretty obvious that if you're going to have a sports league, you need a team in Florida at some point. Same with like Texas, where they have 2 teams. Eventually, California will get a team. Same with New York. But they want to make sure that the league has solid footing before going to these areas that doesn't really have a solid stadium for them. But again, all around, pretty solid with how the UFL is and where they're sitting. I like the teams. I think they're going to be fine. I'm excited for the season. The roadmap is the NFL season ends like second week of February. The UFL season begins last week of March. So pretty much March will be spent discussing the UFL and the off season and all that. And we go from there. Same thing with the NFL. I do predictions, I do power rankings, I go live with every single UFL game because they all take place at a different time. So I'm able to do that. So it's 4 games a week. Pretty simple. Past years, it was 10 weeks. Maybe they change it up this year. I'm not sure. But as more news comes out and we get more information, I'll probably do just YouTube shorts for all the information from then on. But I wanted to do a stream and Like, I might just turn this into a video that goes up later on in the week as well to fully discuss the timeline of what's been going on in the past few months, because it has been a lot. And for most of the people I know that are subscribed, didn't really follow the UFL in years past, because most people here have come from the Tom Grassi rates, and I really appreciate that. But now you get to stay and you get to watch the UFL and embrace the UFL and their teams. But yeah, thank you all for tuning in. I wanted to keep this relatively short to about 30-45 minutes because, again, there wasn't a whole lot of like specifics to discuss, more so just a whole like few months long process of waiting for all of this information. And there's a good chance that this stream gets, unlisted and whatnot, and the video goes up instead. If this stream is still here, thank you all for watching this and sticking through the recap. And I'll see you all next time. Have yourselves a damn good one. Peace.